So what if we'd like to schedule a recurring meeting? Best way to do that I've found is go to the app, open up the app, click on schedule, give it a name. I'll call it Media Arts 10. I'm not going to set the date because this is a recurring meeting, so I'll click on recurring. Remember to check recurrence or repeat in your calendar. We're going to actually set this up inside of Google Calendars, but it's going to take us there, which is really nice. Generate automatically for meeting ID. This is actually quite important. You don't want to use your personal meeting ID. Just a note from the website, it says the waiting room feature is a great way to secure your personal meeting ID. Your personal meeting ID is essentially a meeting that's always running. And if someone has your meeting ID, that's that number, they can just type it in and try to join. You can secure your personal meeting room by requiring a password to join, but the waiting room gives you that security plus added visibility into who's trying to join. So anyway, you can use that. You could potentially use this for instant meetings, but I wouldn't recommend that either. Best thing to do is go with generate automatically. Mine is actually going to be hidden when you're looking at this. You won't be able to see it just for that reason, for the sake of security. You can give this a number if you want. It should give it an automatic number, but I'll enter one in there. I'm not actually going to require it for mine because I'm using the waiting room. That I'm hoping will give me enough security. If somebody were to send out the URL and include the password, they would still be able to gain access. I'll have my host video on. Participants will be off. Now this is, do you want people to dial in or do you just want to go with computer audio? I'm going to leave it checked here. If you think people would be using both computer and the telephone, then you could select that button as well too. I'm just going to leave it on computer audio. Yep, Google Calendar is correct. Now advanced options is quite important. This is where we enable waiting room. Make sure you check that off. Join before host, no, it doesn't make sense, especially if you're using the waiting room. Mute participants on entry, that makes sense. We've got the video off and the audio off. Automatically record meeting on local computer, up to you if you want to do that. Just remember that with Zoom, it does record on the local computer. Next video, hopefully I'll be showing you how to upload those to YouTube or to your Google Drive. Okay, we'll click schedule. And schedule is going to open up your Google Calendar. It's got the information up here. Conferencing, we're not going to add that. Now, if we wanted to, if we were going to use Hangouts Meet, then we would actually arrange that here. So we can still use Calendar to set up a recurring meeting. All right, but let's just go back up the top here for a second. I'm getting ahead of myself here. It's not all day, and we need to check on doesn't repeat to select custom. It's going to be every week, and it's going to be on Mondays and Wednesdays, and it's going to end June 30th. That makes sense. And we'll click done. Now that's already set up except for the time, and you notice the time is in that first bar over here. And what I'll do is skip on that, go right up to this, the top of this thing, click on 9 o'clock a.m. It defaults for half an hour, 9 to 9:30, and that's perfect. That's what I want. So it's 9 to 9:30. It's weekly on Mondays and Wednesdays until June 30th. There's the URL. We're going to add a notification here. And 10 minutes before is perfect, actually. So that should send emails out to all the Gmail accounts who are members of your class. For calendar, I don't want it in the Chromebooks booking. I'm going to go down and find my class. There it is right there, Media Arts 10. And we can give this a color if we want. Oh, I don't know. Sure, make it blue. That's all good. And this is what's going to actually be sent out in those notifications. It'll give the meeting URL, which is important. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the right-hand side here. Guests, modify event, no. Invite others, no. See guest list, sure. I guess that doesn't really matter. And we'll click save. Oh, okay. Doesn't like that color. Let's go up to the top here. We need to go to tomorrow. That's Wednesday. And oh, there it is. It defaulted to black. That's fine. By the way, if we wanted to make an edit, all you do is click on it once, click the edit button, and we can go ahead and make any changes if we need to. In fact, we can delete the thing inside of here if we wanted to as well too. We could even delete all events. I'm not going to do that. I might come back to this afterwards. So at this point, we've got everything set up inside of here. And what I'm going to do is actually go to that event. I'm going to click on the URL. It's going to open up the Zoom app. And it's going to start our meeting for us. Inside of here, I want to go through a couple of other little security things that may or may not be important. So we've already forced the waiting room, which means we have to admit people. But I'm going to click on share screen, go to advanced sharing. Okay, who can share? Only the host. So rather than have all participants able to share, I'm going to make it so it's just me. I'm also going to go over to participants, and down at the bottom, I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to uncheck. It's actually checked, I think, by default. I'm going to uncheck allow participants to rename themselves. You could also, if you really wanted to allow participants to unmute themselves, you could uncheck that. So once you mute them, they can't unmute themselves. I'm going to leave that set to allow them to unmute themselves. So I should also mention while we're here, one more security feature, you can actually lock a meeting. So let's say that you've had, yeah, there we go. No new attendees can join this meeting once locked. The benefit there is obvious. If you're using waiting rooms, you probably don't need to use that feature as well too, but just to know that it is there. By the way, I should mention that inside of a meeting, you can go back and change these settings. So for example, we set it up so only the host can share. If you want to change that at some point during a meeting, you just go back, make that change, and away you go. And you can see this has confirmed our setting, put participants in waiting room on entry, which is what we want. If you're not sure if you have that, you could verify that when you first go into your meeting. Okay, let's post this inside a classroom now. I'm going to actually end this meeting. No sense being in here anymore. And for all, sure, sounds good. Then what I'm going to do is go back to my calendar. I'm going to go back. I'm going to copy that URL, Control C. And then what I'll do is go into my classroom. I'll go to my Media Arts 10 class. I'll go to classwork. I'll create material. And we'll call this link to Zoom meetings. And I'm going to put Monday, Wednesday, 9 a.m. just to help them out a bit. You could put a longer description if you wanted to. We're going to add a link here. That's very important. Add the link. And we'll post this. So now for the students, if they go into classwork and they click on this, that's going to take them to the meeting. Okay, last thing I'm going to do is show you what happens if you post all this and you realize you made a mistake and you want to delete it. All right. What you do is you go into Zoom, make sure you're logged in, click on My Account, click on Meetings, and it's going to show up here. There's my Media Arts 10. I can delete it with one button here. Now the only thing is, I don't know if this actually deletes it from the calendar. Let's go back and check and see if it's gone. And it looks like it's still there. So while it did delete it as far as Zoom is concerned, it appears that it's still posted inside of my calendar, and this link is not going to work. So what we need to do is click Delete Event. And make sure you click all events, because remember, this is a recurring meeting. We'll click OK, and that should wipe the slate clean. Okay, I've gone back in for a second to show one more setting, and that is part of the chat feature. So if I've got chat set up here, if you click on the three little dots, you get a choice of whether the participants can chat with no one, host only, or everyone publicly. Up to you, of course, but you may want to set this so that it's everyone public, or you may want to change that so it's host only. So I'm going to go through all of the settings that I have just so you can see them top to bottom. Host video, participants video, audio type, join before host is off. Personal, you want to keep all of those off, as I mentioned previously. Use password, we can leave those on, up to you. Require password for personal meeting, yeah, I've got that off. Embed password in meeting link, kind of overrides having password since the URL actually contains a password. But you could disable these as well too. The most important thing is having that waiting room enabled. Mute participants, yep, we've got that. Upcoming meeting reminder. Okay, this is an important one. We've actually set up meeting reminders through Google Calendar, but if that doesn't work for some reason, you could come back and set it up here. Okay, the basic settings, which really are not that basic. If we click basic, it'll take us here. Require encryption, leave that. Chat, yeah, allow participants to chat, sure, that's fine. Private chat is off, that's important. Auto saving chats, I'm going to leave that on so we have a record of everything that's typed into the chat. Play sounds, we'll leave that off. File transfer off. This means that potentially inappropriate files could be shared in between members through the chat. Feedback to Zoom off. Display in a meeting, yeah, off for the survey. Allow host to put attendee on hold. That could be handy. You want to put somebody out in the hall, I guess. I don't know. Always show meeting control toolbar. Up to you if you want to have that on during a meeting. Show Zoom windows during screen share. Again, if you want the Zoom windows there, I don't know if that's entirely necessary. You can experiment with those if you like. Screen sharing is on. Who can share? Host only. That's very important. You can always change that if you decide you want your participants. In some classes, you may want them to be able to share, but initially I would start with that off. Disable desktop screen share for users. No, I'm not going to disable that. I want to be able to share my desktop sometimes. You may not want to. You can still share any applications that are open. For example, if you've got a Chrome window open, you can share that. But sometimes you may want to share your entire desktop. The safest thing probably would be to disable it. I'm going to leave mine on though. Annotation, you definitely want this one off. This is to allow participants to use annotation tools. Whiteboard you want on. Now it says allow participants to share, but with annotations off, you should be fine. Only you should be able to manage the whiteboard. So hopefully that works. Remote control, yeah, we'll leave that off. Nonverbal feedback off. Allow remove participants to rejoin. I'll leave that off. And then advanced, I think we've gone through most of these. Breakout room is on. Remote support, closed captioning. If you want to experiment with that, you can. Save captions as well too. Allow another user to take control of your camera. Probably don't want to enable that. Virtual backgrounds, we've talked about that. Identify guest participants. Yeah, I'll leave that on. And these, I'm going to leave these all off. Waiting room, I'm going to make sure we leave that one on. Okay, and I think that should be good. Hopefully that helps.